Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I thought it was about time that I did another junk journal thread, and so I'm going to be talking you through the process for this one today. You can see I had already prepped the background just by using some paint which I had left over from a painting I'd done, so usually whenever I have some leftover paint on my palette I'll just smear that quite haphazardly into my art journal just to make sure it doesn't go to waste. So that's what I started with here, and I'm just going through a lot of my random pieces of paper and starting to layer them up and creating a bit of a collage. So this is generally how I approach junk journaling, is I'll usually try and build up quite a few layers just so that I have a starting point, and then I'll add smaller details and smaller elements on top. So I tend to tear my pieces of collage, and you can see that on the left. And I also really like the sort of vintage effect, and so I like to use a lot of brown papers, and I've got a few bits here that are from a Tim Holtz ephemera pack which I got for Christmas, and so I wanted to use those here as well. I've got quite a few different patterns, so there are some florals, and this green one I'm cutting up to sort of mimic a washi tape strip. And I've got that dotty brown paper which was some wrapping paper which I got last year. And I'm just placing these around the page. I haven't glued anything down yet, I'm just sort of layering them up and seeing how they look. And I start to stick in a few elements because I think you can get to a point where you just layer and then you won't actually stick anything down or make any decisions. So that's what I'm doing here, and I use that sort of clock face on the right, which is from the Tim Holtz pack. So I've started to stick these down, and it's sort of a mix of patterns. So I've got like the grid paper, the dotty paper, and then the text paper, and they're quite different tones. Like the text paper is quite white based, and then cream, and then brown, but I think it works really nicely, especially because the background of this journal is white. And I'm kind of going with the peachy tones because of the paint which I'd already put down there. And I really like this floral paper because that ties in the pink and peach tones, so I just add that. And it kind of makes the clock face a little bit less in your face because it does hide it a little bit. And I don't really mind with my collaging that it doesn't always look as it did at the beginning. Like, I'm more than happy to layer over it because I think that's just part of the process. And you'll see a lot of the time I'll try things and take them away, and so I really wanted to use this piece, which is an old wallpaper sample I think, and I've had that in my stash for years and years, and I thought I could use it today because it has like the peach and pink tones. And so I had it quite large at the beginning, and then I tear it down, and then I tear it down again, but I just couldn't get it to work, although seeing it here I think it does look quite nice on the left. So I actually bring in this black and white polka dot paper, and I use that on the right. And I wasn't sure at first if this was going to be too stark, so I try it with quite a few different things just to try and tone it down, including a piece of text paper again, which I think works, and so I layer that at the bottom, but again I haven't stuck this down yet. So I add some stamps, and then I bring in a photo from the ephemera pack again, and I like the way that's looking, so I stick that down because otherwise I think you can have too many options. So I think sometimes it's just good to get to a point where you're happy with it as it looks, and so just get that stuck down. The problem with junk journaling is there's going to be like endless options, and you can just keep bringing more and more stuff in. So I do find that I like to be quite decisive with this. So I'm sticking down another ticket on the left hand side, and I'm also using this clear sticker which is from AliExpress, and I've got quite a few florals like this, so I'll link this down below, but it just is a really nice way to tie in the black polka dots from the right onto the left hand page. I did have it the other way round, but I didn't realise that the sticky side was wrong, so I had to stick it sort of going off to the left, and I don't really love the way that looks because I've got the curve of the brown paper doing that as well. I think I would have liked it to be the other way, but I'm really happy with that black illustration. Like, it does look like I've just drawn it with a fine liner, and so I'm really happy with that there. So I also bring in this leaf which I picked up on a walk and had dried, and I really love the colour that adds. I think that really helps the spread as a whole, because I think it just adds that pop of colour and really brings it all to life. So I've just got that there at the moment, and I'm doing some stamping because I want to add that more into my journal this year. So I'm just using this label stamp and using a sort of sepia toned ink there, so it's not super harsh. And then I grab my roller date stamp and just pop the date in there as well. So I did find these. I've got a box of like old photos from my scrapbooking which I haven't used, and so I found this in there and I thought it would work quite well. I did really like that photograph, like the sepia one that came in the Tim Holtz pack, but I also like the idea of like using me on this page. I have an idea for a quote I want to use and I think it would tie in really nicely. So I add a few more collage elements on the left, that little piece, the little circle, and then the stamp. And because I did like that sort of sepia toned photograph, I add that on the left, and I think that balances the page really nicely. And I just use a stapler to staple that in instead of gluing it. And then I place in the photos on the right, and I just use some washi tape. Again, this is from AliExpress and I'll link that down below. And I use that just to secure in the leaf. So I'm really liking like the softness and the pastels of this page, so I'm going to add in my quote, which is why I left that blank space on the left. And I'm just using some small alphabet stamps here and a darker toned ink because I want it to be like the main focus of the page. So it's like a dark brown, and I add that on the left. And then here I'm just sort of seeing how I can fit a few more smaller elements on the page. I definitely could have left it as it was, but I really like just adding a few extra details just to add more interest. So I stick the little tag down on the bottom right, and then I use this tiny vellum piece on the top left just to add a bit more texture, and again it ties in with the circles and the dots from the right, and I think that works really well. So here I'm just wondering if it needs anything else, and I find this pointing hand, and I play around with it on quite a few areas of the spread, but I love the idea of it pointing at the quote, again to draw your eye to the main focus, so I just stick that there as well. So I feel like there's a bit of a blank space up the top, and so I just grab these stamps, which is a bag of decoupage stamps, and I add those in and I layer them up. I think the orange works well with the leaf, and I'm not sure about the green now I'm looking back at this spread, but it does add a little bit of extra pop of colour, and so overall I think it works quite well. And that finishes off the spread. So here's a closer look at all the little details. I really hope you enjoyed watching and seeing how this comes together. I'd love to know if you use collage in your journals or if you're inspired to create a junk journal from this. And I'll also pop a link to a playlist which has all my previous junk journal videos down below in the description box. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with a new video. See you later.